So thanks again for joining us for the follow-up Voice for Social Good with Sunny Street. So we met the first time. I've lost track. Was it the 21st of April, like 2-3 weeks ago? And we had some amazing presentations. So because it was hard for Sunny Street to digest and give feedback live, we thought we'd just meet again and check again. So I think the quick agenda is following and it's flexible. So Vanita was quite happy to say a quick hello from Canada, a bit of a welcome message. If people want to present, the drill is if people haven't presented at the first event, you have 5 minutes to present and you can share your screen. So far there's John. If you want to represent, you could if you wanted. Yeah. The other thing is only represent like a quick 1 or 2 minutes, only if there's new insight. So if something if exactly the same kind of visual chart, there's no need. But if it's something completely different, keep it quick. And then we'll open the floor for Sunny Street to give feedback and open the discussion. And then at the end, we wrap up with a call for volunteers, the next step, and then working out what we can do as a group to help Sunny Street getting a proper BI, business intelligence dashboard or real thing. Like obviously we've developed mock-ups or prototypes, but what's the next step to get the real thing done for Sunny Street? So Vanita, if you're around, I'll give you the microphone. Or you got one anyway. And you can say a quick hello from Canada.
Great, thanks, Fred. And thanks for having me here. It's great. It is 3 a.m. in Canada, so I'm not turning my video on. John, you're pretty brave, but I'll just go with the voice for now. I just want to say first, thank you so much, Fred. You've done an amazing job starting up the Brisbane chapter. And the work that you've done with Sunny Street, I'd say the past month and a half has just been great. I think this is probably one of the most successful projects that we've had, and we've had a really lot of great engagement, both with Sunny Street and all the volunteers. So thank you so much. Is it Fred or Frederick? Just want to make sure I'm saying your name properly.
I'm easy. Like Frederick is fine, but Fred is good as well. Not Freddy. Okay. I don't like Freddy. Sounds too horror movie, but
okay.
Fred is good. I don't care.
That's good to know. And just a little bit about my involvement with Viz for Social Good. I was at a Tableau conference in New Orleans in 2018, and you know, I walked into one of their sessions, and I was just blown away because it was a room full of, I'd say, over a couple hundred people. They all brought their laptops, and they were all there looking to do some visualization to support a social cause. And I was just so impressed. And I went back to Toronto, looked up Viz for Social Good, and realized they didn't have a presence in Canada or even in Toronto. So I connected with the founder, Chloe Zhang, who just is a Tableau Zen master, who I think who thought when she set up Viz for Social Good, didn't expect to take off this widely internationally. So I've been really keen and engaged with Viz for Social Good. I think the power of data, the power of how data can impact social issues, there's definitely a lot of potential. And just since then, I've also been involved on their board, helping out with some of the marketing and social activities. It's an entirely volunteer-driven organization, which I think is amazing, just because we have some dedicated folks around the world helping, again, to impact society. We have, I'd say, about 30 chapters around the world, although not all the chapters are active. As Frederick is, but again, on and off, because it is a volunteer-driven organization. And I think what you're doing is great, because not only you're going to be creating the visualizations, but working with Sunny Street afterwards is great. What we're finding is with the visualizations, it really helps bring the data to life and provide the stories, but there's definitely more work to be done with data and how you can sustain those visualizations to make it a little bit more useful for the nonprofit on an ongoing basis. So that's definitely something that we're looking to do with some of our sponsors as well. And I was really impressed with all the visualizations I saw last time. Just amazing work. And the other thing is it is I've noticed very Tableau focused, but Viz for Social Good is open to all tools. So we do have other, we've seen other tools prevalent, Microsoft BI, Click, and so forth. So we are looking to expand our volunteer base and, bring on other BI tools as well. So it's really open to any volunteer to use any of their tools and not necessarily just Tableau. Although I'm sure a lot of people that use Tableau, it's their favorite tool. Anyways, I think that's all I have to say, but yes?
Can I just tell you that you got a big mention at the Power BI, Queensland Power BI meetup about 3 weeks ago. So there was about 150 people there. So yeah, it has really gone widespread here in Brisbane. I know that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And on the note of the Brisbane chapter, I think it's a collective thing. So if anyone from Brisbane is keen to form that kind of Brisbane chapter and then work on the next one. So I'm thinking if we have one every quarters, I don't know. I guess it depends. You probably have to wait for the crisis to pass. But so if you know not-for-profit charities and want to work on the next one with me, there's nothing formal. It's all volunteer, like where we are. So put your hand, and then we can just work on the next one. So we're going to be calling for the volunteers to work on the real Sunny Street one, but there'll be also volunteers for the Viz for Social Good chapter for Brisbane. So keep an eye on that, or let me know, or send me an email, or give me a nudge. Thanks, Anita.
Yep, and as well, you can volunteer for projects anywhere around the world, right? So I think that's the beauty of the model.
Yeah.
Definitely, you can help for local causes, but anyone can volunteer for something somewhere around the world, which is great.
Great. So I'd like to now open the floor. I don't know if we say floor in Zoom for someone who wants to present. So I know John wanted to present. So we keep it tight to no more than 5 minutes because I really want to keep the bulk of the time for the feedback and the interaction and the Q&A. So John, are you the only one who wants to present? Anyone else? Maybe not.
I just want to represent.
You want
represent?
Oh, so sorry, it was Tony, was it? I didn't, because I can't really see who's talking. So
yeah.
Cool. So
also,
yeah.
Also, Walter here. I'd love to do as quickly as I can in the 2 minutes for a couple extra things that's been added.
Yeah. So yeah, the represent would only be a couple of minutes. So so John, you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Magic. Okay. So share your screen, and then Carl, if you can, timekeeping.
No worries. I'll let you know when it's 4.5 minutes, then again at 5.
Cool.
All right. All right, everyone can see this thing?
No, not yet.
No?
Maybe I can, if I stop sharing my screen. Yeah, now we see your screen.
Okay. All right, so I went through, and kind of bear with me, this is my first kind of Viz for Social Good kind of participant. I guess Vanita's been bugging me for a while to do it, so now I'm like, totally on board. But anyways, I went through kind of the main kind of landing sheet. What we have here is really just kind of a good explanation, kind of what's going on, a little bit of the stuff with the charts, some of the challenges I went through with the data, some of the assumptions. So I won't go too much into detail with that. I went through, you click on our population. Really, I started off with, I've only got 3 big filters on it when it comes to kind of active, inactive, kind of ETSI filters, and then the kind of gender filters. And I set it up this way so you can kind of quickly see more of the median stuff. I love box plots. I don't know if anyone else does, but I did a little bit of fun with the box plot on here, so that if you choose females, for example, slowly get there, you can kind of see based off the age groups, so you can kind of quickly see how it's sliced, number of patients, percentage, and whatnot. So really, again, I wasn't sure exactly what everything would be looking for, but I tried to make it fairly simple, so you can kind of see some high-level stuff. One of the big things I noticed when I went down here too was based off first encounters. So when you go through and you can kind of see your different first encounters, number of months where you had large first encounters, and then I built this one out as a bit of a conversion rate. So you can almost kind of see based off your first encounter who's still active. And probably, I don't know, I thought it was insight, may not be. Again, it's one of those things, it's very difficult not having someone to directly bounce ideas off all the time. But I found kind of the later months here, you almost have about a 25% conversion rate, which these are still active. But then again, I don't know if something happened here. But again, it could be something with the process, could be the fact they were going out more. I just thought it was an interesting kind of trend when you start to look at these last few months, is only about 20% of the people are still active. So I gone through that. And again, really it was just more the population overview, just to give you a sense of who your audience is. And this I found really more important too, is when you pull in active versus all. So this gives historical, and this gives you current. So really, as you're starting to get into your different demographics, I mean, it's nice to know the history of people that you've helped, but this makes it a little bit more kind of real when you pull in just the active people. This is your main kind of audience at this point. So you can quickly kind of see what your demographics are, what the groupings are, and whatnot. So there was that one. I went to I took the diagnosis data set. Pretty simple, kind of heat map. I did this based off their last diagnosis date. So based off the uniqueness kind of thing and what was their last diagnosis, just to kind of get rid of some of the noise. So you can kind of quickly see where your big percentages are through your diagnosis. Again, you got all the same filters down the side. And then here you can also see trends on when they were. Again, not totally familiar with the process, but where you see peaks and valleys of when people were being diagnosed, and then a similar kind of mapping down at the end. So you can see based off the month, what was the largest kind of diagnosis for these areas. And because I want to make things simple, went kind of with the medicine data set as well, and it's the exact same layout, just different kind of structures here. So again, you can see who your primarily areas that you, I guess the medication treatments for.
That's 4.5 minutes, John.
Okay. And then again, similar with trend, try to keep it easy. So I mean, once you kind of figure out one view, the other view is almost identical. It's just different context. And that's pretty much it. That was all, honestly, I got really time into. I spent a lot of time trying to blend and try to figure stuff out, and realized Tableau has some limitations on size constraints when you're loading data sets. So then I had to start rebuilding the data sources kind of independently as well. So, but this is what I kind of came up with. I don't know, hopefully it's useful. Hopefully people like it.
That's good.
That's kind of it.
So, Sonia, Nat, or anyone else, do you guys have any comments or observations?
Yeah,
yeah, go. Is that Nat?
I was like, looks really familiar, and then I realized that
Is that Nat? You're breaking up.
I think she dropped off.
Oh, has she? Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to provide feedback too as we go each, rather than at the end, because well, it's fresh in my mind and in front of me too. Yeah. So I love the slicing with this, with you know, the gender options, and I saw quite a few of those in the last, when I looked back and watched the previous 2 hour hackathon results. I love that there's an option to look at males and then the chronic diseases that are influencing males and the medications that we're prescribing and ages and things like that, because you can see some real trends. So I love the slicing in this with the gender. The first encounters is really interesting. It's great to see this. And also the patterns around the months and things like that. It's not something that I suppose we've really looked at before, but I really appreciate seeing that. It's interesting from, you know, volunteer perspective as well, and when people are coming in, and yeah, so, you know, that would be really interesting to map out in more deeply, I suppose. And I love the historical and the current option, or the inactive option. It would be, I think that's important for our company in relation to, you know, how we've grown, and to show that changes we've implemented would be, you know, have worked or haven't worked. Because the reason that we really were keen to do this for social good with Frederick and Key Data was, you know, to have data inform our practice. So it'd be fantastic to even be able to do data, have, you know, show that historically, and then how we've altered our service in relation to that, and how our data's changed too. So I love that historical aspect, and also the trends of diagnosis in months, very interesting, and whether, you know, that's because we've got more people coming in those months, so that would relate to that, or exactly how that ties in. So, or whether, you know, we're seeing more people with chronic disease and, you know, pulmonary disease and respiratory problems in winter because they're actually, you know, presenting actively with shortness of breath. You know, there's all kinds of fantastic things that this uncovers, John. So this is really, really great.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry, I just dropped out before because I'm on the free Zoom and it only allows me 40 minutes. Sorry about that. But yeah, I was basically on the same vein. It was really great to see also that it gives us like the more sort of seasonal data, because that allows us to plan a lot better if we know we're going to see, I mean, we kind of know anecdotally that we're going to see a lot more people around the holiday time, November, December. So that allows us to plan then for volunteers and things like that as well. So that's really great.
Cool. So do we have any other new presenters from the participants or not? So we've got people that are going to represent. So did you say, Tony, you wanted to represent?
Sure.
Tony Wiltar. So Tony, you want to give it a go?
Yep.
2 minutes? I know 2 minutes might sound a bit rough, but I'm rough. Okay, let's go.
All right.
Just focus on new insights or new things.
Tony, what's happened to your head?
There's a light above it. All right, so are you guys seeing?
Yeah, we see your screen.
Great. So there's a couple of things I just picked up that Nova mentioned last time, was the fact that she wants to know, obviously, where to go next in terms of expanding the service, and also that she's quite partial to maps. So I had a look at the data in terms of the Queensland census and have sort of put together this choropleth map here. And what I've done is I've overlaid it with all of the homeless data versus the total population, and then put in a calculated measure of the homeless ratio. But what you can then do is dig into, well, what does homeless actually mean for the Queensland stats? And so, for instance, up north, you've got severely crowded dwellings is 901. So all of this information gives you a sort of a feel for what's going on. And then what I thought, well, while I'd like to think that Sunny Street will go everywhere in Queensland, you probably want to have a look at your catchment area. And assuming that this works, your catchment area is then going to come down. Now, this is linked in with what I call the top 10 locations. And I've also overlaid, well, where is Sunny Street right now? So we know that your, Red Cross Cafe, night cafe there. But the thing is, seeing that Brisbane Inner is such a huge influence on that, I also wanted to filter that out And what that does, it starts to really paint a picture of areas that you could possibly consider. And, you know, things like, you know, Caboolture, interesting, one of the big areas there. And that would obviously be on sort of a drive from Brisbane up to Maroochydore.
That's 2 minutes, Tony.
Springwood, and also down in Southport. So a lot of those sorts of things. So that was sort of one of the things that I wanted to bring to the table. The other bits and pieces that I have added in, this is fairly similar, is all around shift locations and time. So obviously the two biggest areas that we do are Maroochy and Red Cross Night Cafe. And that really gives you an understanding of, you know, more shifts across October, November. So all of that, and plus this viz gives you direct access now to donate here. Everything else is pretty much the same. So that's me.
That's very impressive, Tony. I really like the map and the potential locations. The fact that you can give that much insight and then drive the business potentially.
Mm. All of this is designed to get some money, and that's what the whole aim of this was. Let's create something to get money out of key stakeholders.
And it's Power BI, so it's cool. So it's not only Tableau, Vanita. That's pretty cool. Sonia and Nat, do you want to give some feedback right now or later?
Now is good.
Cool.
So with your slides previously, Tony, I absolutely love the layout of so many of them. I wrote notes from your last, when you last presented. I like that you're focused on the CEOs and how to take action for Sunny Street Story. I loved the concept of Your Giving Gives Hope. I loved that you showed the percentage of care that we provide in relation to the homeless population, I think, in Australia. And that's really important for us when we're looking at, you know, we're saying we're doing great things, but then how do we compare in relation to the national or the state, you know, incidence of homelessness and vulnerability? I mean, capturing vulnerabilities, I don't know that that's even possible, but I loved that. I loved that from your last one as well. And the mountain we climb, you can help us over. I thought that was fantastic. I really appreciated last time your challenges for our people, tiles as well. I thought that was incredibly informative, and your tiles are very easy to digest and read, and so, you know, that's super helpful to us. Yeah, so I love the mapping, and what's really important, I think it was Marco that presented last time from the Department of Transport, and what you've done here, so what you and Marco have done is really important for us when we look at expansion, which is, you know, on hold a little bit with COVID, but what we do is when we look at the criteria in relation to new clinics, we look at quite a few different things, and one of them is the data in relation to where we're going. We've had a lot of people reach out who say, we'd love Sunny Street here, it would make us such an impact, but of course that has to be an informed expansion. So I feel that this makes it incredibly so much easier, and even things that you've got there, not only the percentage of homelessness, people experiencing homelessness, but also the percentage of crowded dwellings. And the other things that we're looking at, which we could tap into, are, you know, the amount of people, you know, the rates of mental health and chronic disease, the amount of primary health services currently there. So how many hospitals, how many GP clinics, and all those kinds of things when we're looking at that. So that's, you know, I love the current state that you've got there. I love the future state that you're shown, and yeah, I think you've done an incredible job of capturing so much of our service.
Cool, thank you.
Great. Do we have any other? Oh yeah, representatives. Is that a word? Who wants to represent?
We can make it a word.
Okay, let's do it. Represent. I can't come up with a French one. So who's next?
Yes, I can go next. Sorry, I was just trying to, that's Will here.
Wilta, 2
Yes,
minutes.
awesome. I just would love to sort of show some of the changes we've made to this just by sharing a quick story, maybe an example of how a volunteer, someone who wants to volunteer might go through this. And I'll try to go as quickly as possible in the 2 minutes so people can see my screen. If I'm looking to volunteer, I might, start here and go, okay, so there's this information icon. So I realized, okay, I can use these cultivars to filter, and I can do that. And I also realized that we have, that's taking a while. We have visits and patients because it says there, okay, so one patient might have several visits. So that's what that's showing. Okay, we're on visits at the moment. And then, if I have a look a bit down further, my computer is just loading as well. I might have to put my video off actually, so that can go quicker. And I go, well, I realize I'm in the age bracket, that 20 to 29-year-old age bracket. So I can sort of relate to that age bracket better if I'm volunteering. That sort of interests me. So I'll click and filter all the data with that. And, maybe I've had a history of smoking as well. So, and I've moved through that. So I feel like I can relate to visits and people who are dealing with the same situation. So I might filter through that as well. And then realize, okay, actually within the people who smoke, daily smokers indicated, and in this age bracket, there's also been an indication of drug abuse. And so, so I'm feeling like I can maybe relate to this even more, and I can sort of dive into that support role, maybe, if that's part of what I'm doing as a volunteer. And Kyle, just let me know when I have 30 seconds left. That's okay.
30 seconds left, Wilta.
Oh, okay. And so I'm in Brisbane here, so that's what I'm interested in, and I might see, okay, well, this is in terms of shifts. Here there are less shifts happening there, so maybe that's a place I want to move into, helping, and I can see it's a safe place, and there are conversations that's happening there. So maybe that's an area that I'm interested in looking into.
That's 2 minutes, Wilta.
There we go. So hopefully that makes it a bit clearer and represents the new things. And
So someone an HR empathy tool. Sonia, Natalie, what do you think? Comments?
That was a glow up from last time. So
awesome.
the last one was really good as well. But I like this one. It's nice and clean, and I think it's cool that you did it for volunteers. And like I like the graphs that you've used because they're easy to read for everybody. And it's really important that we can obviously layer like two things on top of each other, which most of you guys have done, which is really cool. But to say, okay, smoker and this, if we want to see something specific, or maybe we just want to look at the Indigenous population. I just wanted to know with this one as well, did you just exclude the unknowns here, or do you have, you've got the not recorded on some of them, I think?
Yes, so I'm pretty sure for everything that has not recorded, we've got that in there as well. Okay. Yeah, and I guess here it's quite a big percentage.
Yeah, no, really good. And I like that it's easy for a volunteer to go and have a look. So awesome.
Last time, Wilter, I had a look at what you did last time. I found, I find this one as well very clear. It's very easy to read, and especially when you're talking about people such as volunteers who, data is frightening to me, hence why you fantastic guys at people are doing this. But if it's easy to use and, it's just so much nicer. So I appreciated that this data visualization was very clear. Last time I loved the quarterly approach, I need to say as well. And also you had the gender approach as well, where, I was saying previously to John, where you can actually go through and say, when you're looking at men, this is the situation, this is how many people are smoking, this is how many people are using substances and things like that. I loved that. Fantastic for us. I also, with this one, I really love the option around a volunteer relating to someone on the streets. It's one of the questions we used to ask our volunteers is, could you actually find at any point? Could you imagine yourself to be homeless at any or experience that? And I feel like, you know, that would really, you know, it gets volunteers wanting to volunteer and make an impact when they can see that it could impact them, that it could be their life they're looking at. So I really appreciate that. And last time, I think it was Hugh that mentioned there were 3 key areas for us, which was 1, sponsors and donors, 2, internal dashboard for us, and 3, government data sets. But there's a 4th group I find, and that's our volunteers. And there's been a couple of people that have really, you know, shown the volunteers last time as well. So it's, yeah, fantastic actually. So yeah, I love that idea of relatability, and that could even be a separate experience for a volunteer. So, you know, take a trip, what's your aid, you know, and go from there. So that's a whole realm that's, thank you for uncovering.
100%. That's really good. I would also just say that this has been a team effort. So there's there's a couple people that's been working on this.
Team Wilton.
Team Key Data.
Thanks, Wilton.
Fantastic. Thank you.
No worries.
Do we have anyone else who want to have a quick represent? I'm conscious of time because I really like to give the floor to Sonia and Nat to give us some insights. Maybe we go with that. So I guess rather than going through the 15 V's that we had last time, I think that'd be interesting. And everyone is free to open questions, and it's like it should be interactive. I guess what would be interesting is find out what are the key points for Sonia, Nova, and Natalie. What did you guys learn? What did you find the most useful? What sort of triggered your imagination? What are your sort of overall comments? And I guess after that, we move on to the next step, which was what do we do next to help you guys? So I'll let you, Sonia and Nat, to talk. I'm gonna let you talk and then drive that kind of discussion.
Sure. If you guys are happy, and Son as well, I might do the presentations, then you add on as well, or vice versa. Yep. So just going from like the order that we had last time. First, I think first cab off the rank was Jason. And Jason, you've been a massive promoter and supporter and sharer and liked and things like that online from the start. So that's awesome. Thank you for being involved and being like a champion of the event. What you presented, I like that you asked how we can scale without losing value. And I guess that's one of the biggest questions we have, especially being volunteer run. How do we grow but continue to keep the values and keep the kindness and things like that at clinics? So keep like the culture but still be able to grow. And also, I think you and a few other people looked at why people are being turned away. I just thought I might clarify that, and obviously you guys can ask questions and things like that. But we created that value as like to record that, not really as a negative thing, but more we look at it as a thing where, well, we were really busy at that clinic tonight and the volunteers had to go home to their families at the 2-hour mark or 2.5-hour mark. And there were still people that wanted to see Sunny Street and wanted to chat. So we see that as like I guess there's more need in that area, and that also allows us then to maybe adjust for the week after that we need more and things like that. So just to clarify, that being turned away, that's not a negative, we don't want to see that person. It's just we've like reached the time limit or the service provider is shutting down and we have to go, but we know that there's a lot of more need in that area.
Yeah, and can I just add in there, it's usually Wesley Mission that we are turning people away from, because what we found is, you know, that just a little background is that place specifically offers meals on a Wednesday night for 140 people. And there's so much need for Sunny Street that, you know, we have to put people's names on a list and we absolutely turn people away. So what we thought is we'd look at the trend of turning people away and the numbers, and do we expand the clinic and that kind of thing. But other clinics, you know, sometimes we have the same 2-hour time, but you know, that we're seeing 4 people and we don't need to expand. So yeah, definitely we thought if we put that in there, it would help us plan clinics.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of what I saw there, I agree. It's more about capacity planning was what I saw, as opposed, and making sure that also from a volunteer perspective that you have the right volunteers that will have the valued conversations of the people that you are seeing in those different campsites.
Definitely.
Good. It's good insight.
Yeah. If there's anything else you wanted to add, Sam, but yeah, Jason, that was awesome. And I really enjoyed how active you were on the socials and everything, which made heaps of other people jump on board. So awesome work. Love it. And love those.
And I just can I suggest, because not everyone is here, maybe we skip the people that are not here, maybe. So, because we can just keep talking about other stuff. Maybe, I don't know. Unless you guys have objections to that, but keep it.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind giving feedback on all of them, Frederick, only because we is this being recorded and then people can are they going to go back? Yeah,
it's recorded.
Yeah. So Jason, I thanks for every time I got on LinkedIn for the month of March, you and Frederick and Adam and like all kinds, so many different people I think were, I'd get on there and see yellow and pink and I thought, oh, that is a very comforting colour. Colours provide comfort to people. So thank you so much. And on days when things are hard or we've had a hard day with patients, who either don't want to live or they're going through a lot more trauma than we can imagine. And days are hard, and then to come, at the end of every evening to look on LinkedIn and see all this pink and yellow, and I think, we just keep going. We're doing incredible things.
Cool.
So I loved your conversation, value versus sentiment on your presentation, and also how to measure from a patient's perspective. At the moment, currently, we really just have qualitative data. So, when we're turning people away or how do we measure value versus, that we had a nice conversation, because we certainly know that those conversations save lives. And how we measure that, that was fantastic. So thank you for bringing that up.
No, that's fine. I know that also with the things that we're doing from our innovation ecosystem, the way that we connect and the way that we create those conversations, that in itself is actually a more of a community type metric that goes unsaid. So how do we actually show value, even in the conversations that people have, can be valuable.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We see that with Orange Skies, right?
Yeah, that's right. And same with us too. We know that every clinic and conversation we have makes an impact, and it's very grounding to go to a clinic. So yeah, definitely. That's a whole another project. Thank you.
All good.
I think David presented next, but I'm not sure if David is here, is he?
No, I can't see him.
No, if we can just do some quick feedback, Nat, that would be great.
Yeah.
I basically just had that. It's pretty cool that he built a tool, and I'm quite in awe of that. I don't know how that works, so that's cool. And it was nice to see it as Tom was saying, we really like to see the maps, and that really helps us for future planning, and also for things like if we're applying for a new area, if we know that the data for that area shows, vulnerability or shows homelessness, then that's like a big thing to put in those sort of applications. So that was good to see it presented on a map. And I had a few questions, but I guess I'll get in touch with David offline. That's fine.
Or Slack. Yeah, you can do Slack.
Yep.
I don't have much else to add to that, Nat. I loved the map concept as well, and just going through that. And I realised that David focused on the campfire shift information, which was fantastic too. So it looked fantastic on the map. Easy to read.
Cool.
Yep. I think next Shana presented, but I'm so sad that Shana's not here. I don't think, but we got to give a quick feedback last week. But I have to say that what Shana's info gave, what really kind of hit the nail on the head for me, because I wrote down some questions for her as well, but that's all right. But basically, she showed the public health economics of Sunny Street, and that's something it's very hard to do. And I think that it was a few mentions as well to say, obviously we have to be careful and keep in mind that the data might not be 100% accurate, and that the visualizations are based on assumptions. So that one included definitely to put a monetary value on Sunny Street or a Sunny Street patient not going to a normal GP, it's very difficult. But I really appreciated that she tried to show the health economics, because obviously in the end, money talks, especially when we're trying to get funding or things like that. So that and I guess this is feedback for future organizations as well, is those kinds of things where you can put a monetary value on a clinic or on seeing one patient or one patient not going to hospital. That's huge for an organization like us to be able to put money on that. So like, I thought Shana's really got the message across really well and focused on that call to action. So yeah, I was really impressed with that one.
She is an apology, unfortunately, today, Natalie. So I'll make sure we pass the feedback on to her. And if you do have specific questions, feel free to forward them on to me, and I'll put you guys in touch, because she's definitely super keen. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it tonight, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I have to admire the color scheme as well for both of you, Sonia and Natalie. Like, even the background, like, yeah, I'm impressed.
We're dedicated. We are so dedicated.
That's true commitment. Well,
It certainly is. It is. Imril, I would love to also to be in contact with Shana. So please, yeah, Adam, send through her details. Shana's really stood out to me. I know that she said she didn't have a healthcare background, but look, it was incredible. Yeah, the health economics and that same thing. I loved the comparison with the the national metrics, you know, what we were doing versus the average. And I even was shocked with some of the data that she showed. You know, it's just, yeah, the gap is huge with what we're doing, but it's fantastic to see that, especially with sponsors and donors and showing where we need to be, and also government. Yeah, and I loved that she had a focus on the primary health care and showed how to quantify our value versus the national average. So I also agree, Nat, the one thing that was missing with the I'd love to see was actually also the cost associated with, so for example, if we've got 92% of our survey recipients, our patients said they didn't go to emergency department because they turned up to Sunny Street Clinic and things like that. So, you know, those emergency department visits cost around $800, and once people are admitted, it's about $2,500. So, you know, there's some great work we could do there to really push that out with sponsors and really push that out with government. So I loved that Shana focused on health economics, because it's an area that we really need to shine in. So much thanks, Shana. That was brilliant.
Awesome. We'll pass this on. Thank you very, very much for this feedback. No, she's definitely amazing.
Great.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Nathan presented next, and I think you showed some great, like, sort of basic demographics and things like that. And I think it's important to remember, I'm not sure if everyone remembers Nathan's like presentation, but we had some like drug use, alcohol use and things like that. And with those numbers for us as well, it's important to remember that there's a bias in collecting and quantifying that data, because if someone has in the past been recorded as having been alcoholic or having been a drug abuser, that will still show up even if they're not anymore because of the way we record it. But I was thinking about if you could draw those kinds of relations, like thinking about sort of flipping it with things like how someone's mental health progresses the more someone sees us, or like if referrals increase the more someone sees us. Not saying that we want to ignore like anything else, like the other relations, but I was just wondering if that you could sort of flip those to see what impact Sunny Street makes on those sort of like more negative things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, Nat. It's one of the things that we found so difficult to track is, you know, we can show the data around the changes and the amount of more occasions of service and things like that. But how do we show the impact on someone's health in relation to visiting Sunny Street? We get qualitative data from patients. They come back, they you know, they get a job, they get a home, they get things like that. Capturing that is so difficult. So yeah, with Nathan, his was best practice focused. And I actually, I thought it was fantastic because basically when I saw that data set or that visualization, I thought that's actually almost what we report to one of our funding bodies, was pretty much what he showed straight up. I thought I could probably screenshot that and then just send it through to the next report, but it was really, fantastic. He was also right in relation to different users adding different information. So what I liked about Nathan was he brought up gaps in our collection and collation of data, and also saying that there's a lot of not recorded, and some of the reason around that is because we get children or youth, so people under 25 or anyone really, who will give us a name and date of birth and will not share anything else with us because, they're not involved in mainstream healthcare in any way. So sometimes all we're getting, it could be a Indigenous child who will come up and say, look, miss, can you help fix my arm? And all we can get is, all we can do is fix the arm, get the name and date of birth, and there's nothing else. Sometimes the name's not even given to us correctly. So it's really hard sometimes when people, we're fortunate that people are accessing healthcare, and sometimes the data, there's no way we would get the next of kin and all those details, and whether that child smokes and what they smoke. They're just in and out, and that's a percentage of of our patients. But also we've got volunteers who there needs to be more education around what we're doing. So I can see multiple reasons for that, and I really appreciated him bringing that up as well. I love changing the top 10 patient diagnoses, and then the patient age and gender would change as well. So that I loved that as well. That just has told me a lot about the demographics and the type of patient.
Yeah, and I think that, I guess, really highlighted as well that to our volunteers, there's kind of a group of things that we want to train them to always try and get this information versus it's not super important, this information. So yes, like highlighting that training, and then also like balancing it with, especially with our clinics, balancing it with, we want a volunteer to spend more time talking than typing. So like obviously, and we talked about that a little bit last week, the difficulties of that, but it was definitely like good to highlight that. And I guess that's another reason, as Son said, that we're doing this, to get feedback and to see what we can do better. So that it was really, really helpful. So
yeah, I like that he also brought up the corporate option or corporate world. And Wilter, you're talking about volunteers saying, well, I'm, in my 40s, so what would that look like? It would be great when you're talking about getting sponsors to go, okay, what is your age, and have a look at the demographics and things like that in corporate world. So, he was talking about doing comparisons with, what chronic disease I have, or, in relation to someone else in that demographic who's living on the street. So yeah, that would be interesting. Makes it relatable.
Great. Thanks, Nathan.
Feedback. Just thought I'd say thanks, and I'll have a look at that progression. Your patient journeys. Interesting piece you brought up there. I think I can do that one. So
yeah, it's been a really tough one for us, Nathan. It's I didn't even realize you were there, so I'm really glad you're there. It's been really hard for us to say, because we can say this is what we've done and this is what we do, and the mapping and data for future clinics is fantastic, but to show what impact we've had on the health and trajectory of people, that's really tough, and we're still trying to figure that out. So yeah, I loved that. I'm glad you're sitting there now.
I've just been really busy the last 2 weeks with the new contract, but hopefully this weekend or next weekend I'll have a chance to do it.
Yeah,
I'll shoot it over to you.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Nathan. Great stuff.
No worries.
I think the next person that presented was Kelly, and it was a completely different take on everything else we'd seen, which was really, really interesting. And I guess that's one of the things I've enjoyed the most about this, is seeing such a massive range. We didn't think we were collecting that much data. We're trying, but we didn't think we were collecting that much. But to see such a big range of things that you guys can show us from it was really cool. And that different take, Kelly, that I love that you focused really heavily on the volunteers, because in reality they're what runs the service. We're always looking to make sure that they're safe and that they're looked after and that we follow up with everyone. Again, with your presentation, I think you had a look at some of the anomalies. They're most probably just, well, the ones that you pointed out, they were just data entry, not actually, rather than having actually happened a 14-hour shift, thank God. But yeah, those are just data entry things, which is another thing that, you know, we're looking at our volunteers, how we can make sure everyone knows and is on the right track with the data entry. And yeah, I love the colours, obviously, and the simplicity. And it's perhaps something that we can use to rope in more volunteers and say, this is what it looks like. So that was really cool.
I actually really loved this. I loved that it focused, I saw that you focused on campfire, but I loved that you focused on the welfare of the volunteers, because for us it's such a risk, and for Nova and I, you know, in relation to being directors and the governance with the volunteers and wellbeing, it's a really big area. And the visualization that you put out really would help inform our counselling, the services that we would provide, our education, all of those things. I loved that you were like, where is our workforce, and, you know, and are they safe, and, you know, all those kinds of things. So I really, really appreciate it. And I loved the idea of planning the workforce and planning for the workforce. So the volunteers are key to making Sunny Street actually happen. And they're one of our huge priorities. And I love the concept of saying, you know what, this is what it looks like for you guys. And Nova and I can then have a look and go, actually, we're concerned about the fact that there is a lot of mental health and chronic disease. And do you have enough education to provide care for that? And our debriefing, you know, is debrief enough and things like that. So I really loved that visualization.
Thank you very much.
That's all right. Thank you.
So I don't think Robert's here either, but we've basically worked extensively with Cognium and with Tandem, and we're obviously big fans, and how great that software is to be built out and adapted. So we're really looking forward to getting some more people on that Tandem data. I guess a question to the floor is, I know there was a very limited amount of Tandem data. Did anybody have a sort of look at that and see that if we had a lot more data, you would see good things? Or that, I guess a more broader question is, if there's already someone sitting in that room recording that data as a stats person, is there something else we really should be capturing as a person who's sitting there? I'm just throwing that out there if anyone has any comments on that.
Yeah, I've actually worked with Rob, and I know their interface from probably about six months ago. It may have changed since then, but one of the things I've found, especially with the very much the simple tap style approach recording the information, then you can, I think we lose a lot of the sentiment around what happens unless we're in the moment. All right. So the times and place to capture information as you feel, as you go, is probably the most effective, especially if it's more emotional. If it's quantitative data and goes in the system, that's already there. So that's probably something that I would say would be good to actually keep track as part of Tandem as you go along.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We're looking at having that as a more regular thing. I guess it's just like, we're obviously at the moment recording kind of like the topics that are said in the conversation. So anytime anyone's talking about housing, anytime anyone's talking about relationships, or, you know, maybe past DV, anything like that, we're recording those things. Just wonder if anyone else thinks, I know not everyone's health, but whilst someone's already there in the room, as a statistician, if there's anything they should.
I think general feedback.
Feedback from the volunteers, from the patient, sorry?
From the patient. How do we see, especially with your last encounter and then coming back, how was that? So that feedback loop and capturing that right at that point in time is useful. It doesn't have to be a lot of information. It's just the fact that how does that feel? How was that? I think those kind of things will be useful.
That's a really
I agree as well. Yeah.
Natalie, one other thought you could consider, I imagine there's certain keywords, someone might come in, they might have something, I did some work with best practice software years ago. One of the things we set up was to set up a word chart that was with all these keyword or tags, if you like, that related to what the paramedics were doing with this particular practice. And then by putting those into the comments in best practice, we were able to use that to help feed back on some other stuff that best practice doesn't natively work with. So it can be useful to let you do that. And the other comment I'd make there is that the other stuff needs to really be driven by plain English questions that you guys might have that can't be answered at the moment. So it might be something where you guys sit down and say, look, it'd be really good if we could understand this. And it might be a really simple statement that can then be used to help us drive how we can help you with recommendations too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Can I just add one thing, like capturing that emotional behavior, like you talked about the patient journey with you, if there's some improvement there. So in structuring some kind of tags, like little survey checkboxes, rather than writing out the feeling, we might be able to gauge, because they've got chronic disease and mental health, how's that improving over time, and how's that confidence in the medical practitioners serving them? How do they feel? Like, because I saw some of your stuff on LinkedIn, you interview a few clients and how they explain how they feel coming to you versus another doctor. I think that kind of stuff is really important to try and capture that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so as well. It's not something that we're doing at the moment very well. Yeah, and I agree. I think so too, Nathan. Absolutely.
I'm not sure what kind of tags you're going to do there and how you survey that, but a workshop around that, and we could trial it and do some more data analysis to see if it's actually working.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. That would be wonderful.
Great.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Thank you guys so much. So is Hugh here?
No.
No. I guess quickly for Hugh, if he's going to watch the recording, is just, I like what he said, that it's about actions, not dashboards. So not just creating a dashboard, but actually using the data to then take action from it and make changes that need to happen. So we really want to use the data, and you guys showing us it so nicely makes that a lot easier than the massive spreadsheets. So that's really cool. And yeah, I like the extras that he raised as well. We're not really collecting at the moment when we do extra things, like we've done sexual health checks, we've done breast screening checks, and how we're collecting our patient improvements. So I guess it really made me think about what we're missing, and a couple of people have done that really well, just to point out sort of this is what you're actually not capturing with this. Excuse me. And that helps us build out the next thing, for example, Tandem. So yeah, I'll try and get in contact with those guys offline.
Great.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, I don't have too much else to add because I think that was fantastic, Nat. And I think we've answered the questions around why are we turning patients away and things. I love the baseline measurements as well, and the actions, not just dashboards. And we're all about action. We kind of do walk the talk. So I really appreciated that. It kind of resonated with me too.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think I saw Andrak here before.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for coming back. So I love the simple visualization and how it just fits nicely together. I love that you took on those massive spreadsheets, which I was quite scared of, to be honest, and made something really easy to digest. And that's, you know, a really nice sort of screenshot thing that we can show to people. This is the base demographic, this is what we do. The only feedback I have is that the locations, like that map that you had, could be a little bit clearer in terms of the scale, or maybe showing where we could expand to. And I love that you just jumped into it. So it was a really nice little simple picture. So awesome.
Cool, thank you.
Andrea, I was super impressed with you being a student. When you said that, I thought, wow, that was because that dashboard, that was fantastic. And I loved also, like Kelly's, that it was focused on the volunteers because, you know, they're such a, you know, they're with people we take care of. So I really, really love that. I like that they could look at who they worked with, you know, what they were going to do, the kind of health issues that they were going to be exposed to, because then they can make an informed decision about where they can go and what clinics suit them, because, you know, certain clinics have very complex issues and some, you know, have very low risk. They're very low risk. So I really, really appreciated it. I love that it was a simple dashboard that, like I said, you know, if you're not into data, like people like me, you know, you can click on and say, this is what you're looking at. I love that. And it was really informative for volunteers. So that's fantastic and something that we'd love to use.
Cool. Thank you so much for your feedback.
Oh, thank you so much for what you've done.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I think Liam did some really scary computer programs last time. I don't think he's here today, but
No.
I thought it was nice when it came up in that little graph. That was really pretty, and it would be really interesting to use that one if we needed to see just like a particular disease, or say, I know we're writing an application at the moment where we want to get funding for, like, for example, for a diabetes educator or for an allied health practitioner. So we could show how often that happens and how often that disease presents to us versus like what kind of qualifications we would need in either a funded role or a volunteer role. So I like that you got into the gritty of the data, and yeah, it was really good.
Liam, when I saw yours, I was frightened. It just looked very data-y. I looked at the screen and thought, I have no idea what this means. I'm very much a graph or pie or Tableau girl, obviously. But I really loved that you showed clearly the correlation with Sunny Street patients, age and chronic illness, things like that, or allergy and chronic disease. It would be very interesting to look at that from a Sunny Street perspective, but then also the national average. So does experiencing homelessness and hardship influence the rate of chronic disease? And you could certainly look at those comparisons when you're looking at the national average versus our Sunny Street patients. And I thought that your data would absolutely show different trends, and that chronic disease and or chronic illness would be accelerated in the case of the people that we see. And I also loved that you showed gender and mental health and the trends with men and women, or male and female. So I thought it was absolutely brilliant and showed something completely different to everyone else as well. And yeah, I think that would be really a fantastic in relation to government and that high level, showing that high level data. So thank you so much. It was brilliant.
And I think, is Marco here?
No.
No. All the people that I had questions for not here, but that's okay. I just really like the focus on locations, something like that. When, again, if we're applying to a local council or local government area, that would be hugely impactful. And I guess I wanted to see if it would be possible to see our effect over time using the map. So I think Tony and someone else had an interactive map as well, I guess, to show from baseline when Sunny Street started in a suburb like Maroochydore to now, if that data has been affected at all, even that census data. And I guess as a general thing, the problem with using census data around homelessness is it's not going to be that accurate. And in general, accurate numbers around, people who are living like on the streets or in crowded dwellings or other places is just not recorded accurately. So that's a massive problem around, I guess, the baseline data, and then to like layer ours on top of that. So that's a general problem that we have, that we just don't have a great source for that. But yeah. So, but yeah, Marco's maps and that were great. And yeah, I think I'll get in touch with him as well.
Cool.
Yeah, I found the same with Marco's maps. I loved that. It instantly made me think, Tony, same as yours, around, where to next. And, that's so important that we do that right, because otherwise it's a waste of resources and people's time. And we also promise a service to people on the streets we can't sustain. So I really love the planning around that. Yeah, so, I thought that was brilliant, actually. So well done on taking that tack straight up.
And I guess to everybody, especially the Canadians who have tuned in at 3 a.m, thank you guys so much for all the work and tuning in and being part of it. It's been really amazing to see it presented, especially from those massive spreadsheets, which really scared me at the start. So thank you guys so much. It's been really, really nice. And everyone, I'm sure, has put a lot of work into it. So for everyone, thank you. And
I believe with Frederick's.
Oh, yeah.
We're late like Frederick.
Tacked it right on the end.
That's right. And Frederick, Nova and I can't thank you enough. Nat and Nova and I have just, when you first approached me about this, so it was just such a, it was almost like an answer to our prayers. Nat and Nova and I have been out on the streets. We are sitting with people who have just got out of jail. We're sitting with people who are pushing trolleys and sleeping under trees, and women and men and kids. And then we're also, trying to collect data. We're also doing a lot of talking and media. We're also writing our processes from scratch. So when you first came to us and said, I think we might be able to help visualize your data, I think Nova and I cried. So it was just such a relief, because, there's a small team. There's only 4 of us running this service managing the service, I should say, across Southeast Queensland with a lot of volunteers. But thank you for that. I loved that we could track people with mental health issues who we don't see again. The follow-up with people and the fact that you showed that, you saw someone and they never came back, or what happened, and that also, is part of our duty of care too. And we do have welfare checks and things like that, but they're probably not recorded either. So I really, that made me think, and thank you so much for that. I really appreciated that. And it's great to see also where we're putting our time. So the fact that you brought up IT is ridiculously accurate and frustrating. But then also, that your information was so informative, because, then we can say, well, is it education? Is it that we need, we got server issues? Do we need a new provider? What is it exactly? And yeah, so I really appreciated that breakdown as well. Yeah, I thought it was really laid out beautifully and very informative, and made me think about the people, who don't come back into the service and our duty of care and what's happening to them.
Cool. Thanks for the feedback. And I think the overall This for Social Good objective and motivation is to help people like you guys. So I think we're putting a bunch of data nerds, data enthusiasts together to help you guys. I think it's a pleasure. So I think we're glad that we can help. That's amazing. I think that's good words. Yeah.
We should be thanking you guys. So, I think the current crisis is outlining how it could happen to any of us. And that's the reality.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think I can speak probably on behalf of everyone, even if I don't want to do that. I don't like to do that, but the reason everyone's here tonight is because that's a way for them to thank you for what you're doing. And
thank you.
I'm very impressed of the effort that Frederick put in. So, but yeah, what you guys are doing is it's bloody amazing. So to use a good Queensland expression. So yeah, congrats. I just had a text from Shana as well, funnily enough, a couple of minutes ago, saying she's an apology because of the COVID-19 crisis. She had to look after someone. But she's saying that she's hoping it goes well tonight, and she definitely would love to stay part of the next iteration. So
oh, that's wonderful news.
That's a good segue. So, because what I want to also cover, which I think is
the next iteration. Yeah,
next iteration. I think it's good that we've created 15 dashboards. They were more submitted by the developer community, which I've put on Slack. But what I'd like to, I guess, talk about as a group, it's what's next. I guess the driver and the motivation is to get Sunny Street a proper BI tool or proper BI platform or dashboard, something that actually works connected to real data. So I think that I'm going to share my screen because I've got a form, a survey that I want to share with you, which is my ask, basically. I'm calling out on volunteers to work on the next step. Hang on, if you can share my screen. So what we'd like to do is set up a small team of volunteers to build the development of a real business platform for Sunny Street. So I'm going to send a form in an email, of course, with the link, which is basically a survey. I don't know if you can see the screen there. Adam, feel free to jump in because I guess it's time now to move beyond the prototype we've done, which are amazing piece of work for some of them. But the real value for Sunny Street will be to have a real dashboard. We're not even talking about tools or technologies or anything. It's what's next for Sunny Street in terms of using data as a day-to-day kind of intelligence tool. So if you set up a small team of volunteers, we can start maybe setting up a small mini project. Some of us might just look at funding, I don't know, crowdfunding or whatever. So we probably need business intelligence, BI, project managers, and so on. But anyone will be willing to volunteer to help Sunny Street develop the real thing. So, Adam, you want to jump in, or David? And add on that?
Just very, very quickly, because I think you summarized it pretty well. The last thing we want is for this to stop here. And we all have spent quite a lot of time already. And the difficulty is okay, once you want to start, have a platform that is live and updating the data as fresh as possible, and so on and so forth. That's where the difficulty starts, because that's where a lot of the work goes, and it usually requires some commitment. So the idea that we had is basically, why don't we try to coordinate all of that, using everyone who can volunteer, and using also I guess some of our time, whether it's Key Data or any other company that wants to volunteer or use resources at cost, for example. But the goal was to really make something that is as cheap as we can, so that Sunny Street can, if necessary, Sunny Street can maybe go and get some funding to put a proper project together, and at the end deliver a platform that can address those 4 different audiences that we were talking about. So one, providing better, stronger analytics to Sunny Street so that they can understand their operations better. For example, visualizing the gaps in the data, what you said earlier, Natalie and Sonia, is a very good point. It's very important, so that once volunteers that are capturing the data can then see them, they actually can see the outliers and see the impact of what they're capturing versus what they're not capturing. And it actually encourages them to capture the data in a better way. This is behaviors that we've seen even in corporates, where people often think, oh yeah, I don't want to visualize my data because it's crap and I need to clean it. Well, the truth is, it actually triggers better behavior and better capture of the data once people understand how it can be used and what value it can have. Secondly, providing maybe a portal for the people that are funding to understand where the money is going and how it's being utilized will hopefully trigger more funding, and maybe then to encourage other people around them to fund as well. Providing a window into the government, into what Sunny Street's doing, so that maybe they can think about, oh, hang on, maybe there's something we can do better here. Maybe we can capture census data in a better way. Maybe, whatever the case may be. And then lastly, and probably maybe not the last use case, but providing a better view to the volunteers about how impactful their work is, I think is tremendously valuable. So anyway, without going on for too long, the idea is we can't obviously have 20 people working on that. It'll be a mess to coordinate. However, and also at some stage, and I like what you said earlier, Vanita, this shouldn't be a tool thing, it shouldn't be a dashboard thing, it is something that should deliver value. But the reality is we're going to have to select a platform and a tool and figure out how we're going to deliver that and utilize the resources around us that have capabilities in those platforms and tools. So the goal of this survey is to try and capture first who can commit some time and how much time you can commit. What are the technologies that you're familiar with, or programming languages, for example? And then we'll try and put our heads together and find out what's the logical next step. We don't know yet where it's going to go. It has to be driven by Sunny Street as well. But for us, our goal is to make this so that it's not a big Excel spreadsheet, or it's not a massive programming language that they're looking at. It's just information. So yeah, really keen to get this moving, get this to the next step, and use as many volunteers as we can so that we can keep this as cheap as possible, so that it's actually achievable.
Yeah, how does it sound like for people listening? Any questions, comments?
I think that's a really good summary.
Sorry, who's talking? Because I can't see who's talking.
Sorry, that's myself, Tony.
Oh, Tony, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary. And I think just picking up one of those points, it really does come down to what Sunny Street wants to achieve with the data as well. What I've sort of noted is that it seems to be both an external and internal focus in terms of what do you want to drive. Hence, I'm of the belief that you get more money, you're going to be able to provide more service. Hence, that's, what I'm sort of focused on. But that internal data as well, I suppose, is also an aspect. And that's where it comes back to what Adam has just said around, you really need to decide where is it that you want to drive your sort of data and your dashboard. And then I think once you've got that, it should be a relatively straightforward process to pull it together.
Yeah, and whether there's an opportunity for it to, as you're saying, Tony, for it to be, if there's those 4 areas of focus, which is sponsors and donors, and a data that helps to support that when Nova and I head out and have those conversations, and they're supporting Nova and I and the Sunny Street service to provide care. The internal dashboard stuff for us, the government data set looks completely different to what it looks like for an internal dashboard and volunteers. So as far as I can see, there's 4 areas of focus, and whether there is an opportunity for there to be, teams in those 4 areas, or whether that's too much and the dashboard's for one area. So
in mind as well, this could very much be an iterative approach, where we try and keep it financially manageable by delivering one bit at once. As Tony highlighted, we're not talking about 25 different systems that we're trying to integrate together, and what may seem super complicated to you and to me, because I'm not too technical either. I mean, I'm dangerous enough, but what may seem really complicated to you guys is somehow that simple for other people, like Tony or Shana or anyone who's probably participated there. So, it's I think we'll be able to do some really great things for you guys. I'm quite confident.
Great. Any other comments or questions or thoughts? Thanks, Tony. So are we happy to wrap up? Are we ready enough? So I'm going to follow up with obviously sending the video recording so people can watch offline. If you want to volunteer, put your name in the survey, and I guess we'll catch up offline or do another follow-up session in a few weeks' time, a few months' time, where we get a small group of volunteers and then work it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Last thing I want to just add in there. The goal is to have something that's really efficient, effective. So I guess we are going to have to select only a few people. So, you may get an email saying that, oh, maybe you're not part of this team. It's not because your skill set wasn't good. It's not going to be it's mostly going to be a question of pragmatism, and that's pretty much it. Now, this for social good is going to continue on, and I know Frederick's passion, and I know that he's going to keep this going and help other organizations as well.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to see everyone here at the next chapter, and I'm hoping to see this thing growing as well.
Yeah, because we need volunteers to run the next one. So if you know charities, non-for-profit, social enterprises that are like Sunny Street, they have data but they don't know what to do with it. Drop me a line or put me on Slack me, and then we can. I've got a few ideas, but so I'm thinking maybe in a couple of months' time or 3 months' time. It depends on the crisis with COVID-19. Hoping to run the next one very soon. So again, thanks Sunny Street, Sonia, Natalie, Nova. You guys are amazing. As Adam said, we're doing that for you. Not we're happy to give some of our time, but you guys you deserve the clap. So well done. Virtual claps and virtual hugs, or real claps and virtual hugs.
A social distance hug.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It just just tells the story in a really, really effective and important way for us. So no, when Nova and I and Nat don't have skills in this very much at all. So thank you guys for spending the month of March and hopefully the future with us on our journey. It's been only 23 months since we began out the back of the boot of a car, and we're now across southeast Queensland, and we hope to go national once this crisis is over. So yeah, we'd welcome you guys to be part of our journey and help tell our story. And
you need volunteers as well on the ground, do you?
Yes. We do need volunteers on the ground as well. Yeah.
And people can donate. I'm just saying, people can. There's a GoFundMe or what's page is it? I put that on Slack anyway. So go and give a few bucks to those guys. Amazing.
Thank you, Frederick. Yeah, we're trying to crowdfund it. We unfortunately began it right at the beginning before COVID struck, so it fizzled badly. And our major event that we were doing for our crowdfunding campaign was about social connection. So that's almost illegal now. So it didn't go, which I never thought I'd really say in this lifetime. So yeah, it didn't go so well. So yeah, if anyone can help, that would be very much appreciated.
You need to partner with a toilet paper supplier. You know, $1 from every sale goes to you. Jeez.
I'd probably be locked up for extortion. So I don't know who's going to run the company if I'm locked up for extortion, but I'm sure I could get a media story out of that for Sunny Street.
That's very true.
I could sell my story. I don't know, but yeah, no, we just yeah, it's a bit tough at the moment, like so many businesses. But thank you so much for lighting up LinkedIn and our lives this week with those dashboards. That's been incredible.
And we'll do it. We'll continue. Sonia and Nat and Nova will be in touch. And I know Jason is super motivated. He had to go early, but Jason is super keen to move on to the next step as well and deliver the real thing. So Jason, Adam, and all those guys from Kidada are amazing. So thanks for you guys. Thanks for Vanita and John from Canada to wake up at 3 o'clock this morning, and we all be in touch. Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Be safe, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.